The cantina was dark and smelled like cheap fuel and cheaper alcohol. Sat in the corner booth, her blue skin reflecting the dim lights overhead. She listened to the voices around her, voices that whispered. "I heard he destroyed 12 ships by himself," a trader said, his scaled hands shaking as he lifted his drink. 12, try 20, another voice answered. The Broken Sun's fleet, all gone in one night. Leaned forward. She had heard these stories before. Everyone on Outpost 7 had heard them. Stories about a single human who moved through the galaxy like death itself. "They say he can't be killed," a third voice added. "This one belonged to a merchant, one of his own species. Shot him 30 times. He kept walking, kept fighting, until everyone else was dead." The trader laughed nervously. "That's just a story. Nothing can survive 30 shots." "Tell that to the clan," the merchant replied. "They tried to collect the bounty on his head, sent 50 hunters, none came back." Felt cold. She was a tactical officer in the military. She had seen combat. She had faced dangerous enemies. But these stories made her skin crawl. They called him the ghost, the demon, the hunter, but his real name was simpler. Sung. Just saying his name made people stop talking, made them look over their shoulders, as if speaking it might summon him from the darkness. Finished her drink and left the cantina. She walked through the metal corridors of the station toward the command center. Her shift started in 10 minutes. She tried to push the stories from her mind, but they stayed with her like shadows. The command center was busy when she arrived. Officers moved between stations. Screens showed ship movements and sector reports. Commander stood at the main display, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He was old for his skin darker blue than's, marked with the scars of 100 battles. "Officer," he said without turning, "you're late." "By 3 minutes, sir," she replied, taking her position at the tactical station. 3 minutes can mean life or death in this profession, said. His voice was tired. "Speaking of which, we have a situation." Pulled up her display, red markers appeared on the screen. The Syndicate. "Yes, they hit one of our transports last week, killed the crew, stole classified military codes," turned to face her. His eyes were dark with worry. "Those codes give access to our defense networks. In the wrong hands, they could destroy us." Felt her stomach tighten. "Where are they now?" 9. A lawless moon on the edge of territory. Pulled up an image of the compound. It was massive, heavily defended. "We can't send a military force. It would start a war. We need something quieter." "A stealth team," suggested. "We tried that twice. Both teams are dead." Looked at her directly. "So we're trying something different. We hired outside help." Didn't like the sound of that. "A mercenary." "Not just any mercenary." His voice dropped lower. "A human mercenary." The command center seemed to get quieter. Other officers glanced their way. Everyone knew what that meant. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. They were new to space travel, barely a century out from there. But they had already built a reputation. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable. They didn't follow the normal rules of survival. When any other species would retreat, humans attacked. When they should die, they kept fighting. They were considered unstable by most galactic standards. "Sir, with respect, is that wise?" asked carefully. "Humans are." "I know what they are," interrupted. "I fought alongside one during the Verge Wars. Watched him take a plasma bolt to the chest and still drag 3 wounded soldiers to safety. Humans don't know when to quit. It makes them terrifying. And right now, we need terrifying." Wanted to argue but held her tongue. Commander had more experience than anyone on the station. If he thought this was necessary, there must be a reason. "Which human did you hire?" she asked instead. Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something rarely heard from her commander: fear. "Sung." The name hung in the air like smoke. Around them, officers stopped working. Everyone was listening now. Everyone had heard the stories. "The ghost," someone whispered. Nodded slowly. "He arrives in 6 hours. Officer, you'll be his liaison. You'll accompany him on the mission." His blood went cold. "Sir, I'm not qualified for." "You're one of my best tactical officers. Young but smart, quick thinking." Placed one of his hands on her shoulder. "And you need field experience. This mission will give you that." "Or get me killed," thought but didn't say. She returned to her quarters after the briefing. Her hands were shaking. She sat at her terminal and pulled up everything she could find about Sung. The file was surprisingly small. Humans kept few records, and what existed was mostly rumors and confirmed kills. Born on a colony called New Haven, former security officer, lost his family in a pirate raid. That was 12 years ago. Since then, the records showed dozens of missions, each one impossible, each one successful. Destroyed a slave trading operation single-handedly, tracked down a terrorist cell across 5 systems, infiltrated a warlord's fortress and eliminated him without being detected until it was too late. Every military force in the region had tried to recruit him. All failed. He worked alone, took only the jobs he wanted, and never ever failed. But the thing that frightened most were the casualty reports. Sung had been reported dead at least 7 times. Shot, stabbed, blown up, exposed to vacuum, poisoned. Each time he survived. Each time he came back. What kind of being refuses to die? Looked at the only image in the file. It was grainy, taken from station security footage. A human male, average height for his species, dark hair, wearing worn combat armor. His face was hard to make out clearly, but his eyes were visible. They were empty, cold, the eyes of someone who had seen too much death and stopped caring. Closed the file. She tried to sleep but couldn't. The stories kept playing in her mind, whispered words in dark cantinas, tales of a human who couldn't be stopped, wouldn't be stopped. In 6 hours she would meet him, the legend, the monster. In 6 hours she would see if the stories were true. Outside her window, ships moved through the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Sung was coming, and realized that she was more afraid of meeting him than she was of the mission itself. They whispered his name in fear across the galaxy. Soon, she would understand why. The docking bay was cold. Stood near the airlock with Jin, another tactical officer. Both carried weapons on their hips, standard procedure when meeting unknown arrivals, but knew her pistol wouldn't do much good if the stories about Sung were true. "Do you think he'll really show up?" Jin asked. His voice shook slightly. "Commander said he confirmed the contract," replied. She kept her eyes on the airlock door. "He'll be here." "I heard he once killed a warlord with his bare hands," Jin said. "Are 3 times human size." "I heard that too," said quietly. They waited in silence. Around them, dock workers gave the landing pad a wide berth. Word had spread fast. The ghost was coming to 7. Nobody wanted to be close when he arrived. A warning light flashed. The airlock computer announced an incoming vessel. His heart beat faster. She checked her weapon, then felt foolish. What good would it do? The airlock cycled open. A ship drifted into the bay on maneuvering thrusters. It was small, built for a single pilot. The hull was with blast marks and poorly repaired damage. This was not a fancy ship. This was a tool, used hard and often. The ship settled onto the deck with a heavy clang. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. A figure appeared in the doorway. Sung was smaller than expected. Humans were generally shorter than, but she had imagined someone larger, someone who matched the legends. Instead, she saw a man of average build, maybe 170 centimeters tall. He wore dark combat gear, reinforced at the joints and chest. A long coat hung over his shoulders, its edges worn and torn. Multiple weapons were visible on his belt and strapped to his legs. His face was hard to see in the shadow of the ship, but as he walked down the ramp, the lights revealed his features. Stared, his face was covered in scars, not just a few, dozens of them. A long mark ran from his left temple down to his jaw. Another crossed his right cheek. His nose had been broken at least twice. These were not the neat scars of surgery. These were the marks of violence. But his eyes were worse. They were dark, almost black, and they were empty. They swept across the docking bay with the cold assessment of a predator checking for threats. Those eyes landed on and Jin. Sung stopped walking. For several seconds he just looked at them, felt like prey being studied by something that decided whether or not to kill it. Then he moved forward again, his steps quiet despite his heavy boots. "Officer," his voice was rough, like broken glass. "Yes," she managed to say. "This is Officer Jin. We're your liaison for." "I know why you're here." Sung walked past them without stopping. "Where's the briefing?" And Jin exchanged glances, then hurried after him. For someone walking casually, he moved fast. They had to quicken their pace to keep up. The briefing room was on level 3. Commander was already there along with several other senior officers. They all stood when Sung entered, not out of respect, realized, out of caution. Sung ignored the others and walked directly to the main display. He studied the image of the compound for several seconds without speaking. "Security?" he asked. Commander activated the tactical overlay. 50 guards minimum, automated defenses, sensor nets. The vault containing the codes is in the central building, underground level. Sung's eyes moved across the display. Guard rotations. Every 6 hours. Weak points. The western perimeter has fewer sensors, we believe. "The western approach is a trap," Sung interrupted. He pointed to several locations on the map. "See these positions, perfect ambush points. They want you to come from the west. You'd be cut down before reaching the wall." Leaned closer. "Then how do we get in?" "We don't." Sung pulled up a different view of the compound. "I do, through the front gate." The room went silent. Jin let out a nervous laugh. "That's suicide." Sung looked at him. His empty eyes showed nothing. "I've done worse." "Explain your plan," Commander said. Sung traced a route on the display. "I go in alone, disguised as a bounty hunter. Tell them I have information on ship movements. The love, that kind of thing. While they're checking my information, I locate the vault." "And then?" asked. "Then I take the codes and eliminate anyone who tries to stop me." "That's not a plan," Jin said. "That's barely even an idea." Sung turned his cold gaze on the officer. "I've completed 47 missions like this, all successful. You've lost 2 teams trying to be careful and clever. My way works." "Because you're willing to die," Jin shot back. Something flickered in Sung's eyes, something dangerous. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Are you?" Commander raised one hand. "Enough, Sung. Your plan has merit, but you'll need backup. Officer will accompany you." Sung looked at for the first time since the briefing started. Really looked at her. She felt like he was measuring her worth, deciding if she would be useful or just in the way. "She'll slow me down," he said flatly. "She's one of my best," replied. "And she knows our technology. You'll need her to extract the codes from the vault." Sung was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Fine, but she follows my orders. No questions, no hesitation. If I tell her to run, she runs. If I tell her to shoot, she shoots. Understood?" Felt anger rise in her chest. She was a trained officer, not a child, but she swallowed her pride. "Understood." "We leave in 3 hours," Sung said. He turned to walk out. "Wait," called after him. "Don't you want to review the full tactical data, learn about combat doctrine, plan contingencies?" Sung paused at the doorway. He didn't turn around. "I've fought them before. I know how they think, I know how they fight, and I know how they die." He left the room. His footsteps echoed down the corridor, then faded to silence. Jin let out a breath he'd been holding. That's him, that's the legend. Didn't answer. She was thinking about Sung's eyes, the emptiness in them. She had seen death before, but never in a living person. Sung moved and talked and breathed, but something inside him was already dead. "Officer," Commander said quietly, "a word in private." The others left. When they were alone, placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know you're afraid, that's good. Fear keeps you alert, but listen carefully. Sung is dangerous, yes, but he's also the best chance we have. Trust his instincts, follow his lead, and most importantly, don't try to be a hero. Your job is to support him and get the codes, nothing more." "What if he decides I'm not worth protecting?" asked. Was quiet. "Then you'd better prove him wrong." Returned to her quarters to prepare. She checked her gear 3 times. Pistol, backup pistol, knife, medical kit, code extraction device. Everything she might need. But deep down, she knew no amount of equipment would matter. She was about to walk into hell with a man who lived there. In 3 hours, she would board Sung's ship, and then she would learn if the legend matched reality. The story said he was unstoppable, unkillable, a force of nature wrapped in human skin. Soon, she would discover the truth for herself. The moon called 9 looked dead from orbit. Gray rock and dust, nothing more. But sensors showed the compound glowing with energy signatures. Hundreds of life forms moving inside its walls. Sung's ship descended through the thin atmosphere without lights. Sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the compound grow larger on the. Her hands were sweating inside her gloves. "We're landing 2 kilometers out," Sung said. His voice was calm, like he was discussing the weather. "We approach on foot under cover of darkness. The front gate has 6 guards. I'll handle them." "Handle them how?" asked. Sung didn't answer. He brought the ship down in a rocky valley hidden from sensors by the terrain. The engines powered down. Silence filled the cabin. "Check your gear," Sung said. He stood and moved to the weapons locker, watched him select items with practiced efficiency. Extra magazines, grenades, a long knife that looked more like a short sword. He strapped everything onto his body with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. They left the ship and started walking. The gravity was lighter here than on 7. Each step felt strange. But Sung moved as if he'd been born on this moon, his steps sure and quiet. The compound appeared ahead, lit by harsh floodlights. Could see the guards at the main gate. Large beings, heavily armed. They were known for their size and strength. Each one stood over 2 meters tall with thick armor plating. "Stay here," Sung whispered. "Move when I signal." Before could respond, he was gone. She blinked and he had simply vanished into the shadows. One moment there, the next gone, like a ghost. Crouched behind a rock formation and watched. Sung appeared at the edge of the light, walking casually toward the gate. He moved like he belonged there, like he had every right to approach. The guards raised their weapons, heard shouting but couldn't make out the words. Sung stopped, hands visible, talking to them. She saw him gesture toward the compound, saw the guards lower their weapons slightly. Then everything happened fast. Sung moved. His hand went to his belt and came back with a pistol. 3 shots, so quick they sounded like one. 3 guards dropped. The other 3 barely had time to raise their weapons before Sung was among them. Had trained in hand-to-hand combat. She thought she understood close quarters fighting. But watching Sung was like watching something inhuman. He moved between the guards like water, each motion flowing into the next. A strike to a throat, a knife appearing in his hand, disappearing into an armored gap. A guard's weapon turned against its owner. In less than 10 seconds, all 6 guards were down, dead or dying. Sung waved her forward. Ran to the gate, her heart pounding. Up close, she could see the carnage, the precision. Each guard had been killed with minimal effort, maximum effect. This wasn't fighting. This was butchery raised to an art form. "Move," Sung said. He was already heading into the compound. They moved through darkened corridors. The compound was larger inside than it looked from outside, built deep into the moon's crust. Sung navigated without hesitation, as if he'd been here before. They encountered two more guards. Sung killed them before even saw them coming. Their bodies hit the floor silently. "How do you?" she started to ask. "Quiet," he hissed. He pointed ahead. "Camera, don't look at it directly." They passed under the security camera. Sung had attached a small device to the wall that looped the video feed. Another device he'd prepared in advance. Another detail he'd thought of. The vault level was exactly where the intelligence said it would be. They descended 3 levels, avoiding patrols. Twice, Sung had to kill guards who got too close. Each time it was quick, efficient, silent. They reached the vault door. It was massive, designed to withstand explosions and plasma cutters. Pulled out her code extraction device and got to work on the access panel. "How long?" Sung asked. He stood facing back the way they came, weapon ready. 5 minutes, said. Her hands were shaking but steady enough to work. Maybe less. 3 minutes passed. Then a sound echoed down the corridor, an alarm, high-pitched and urgent. "What did you touch?" Sung demanded. "Nothing, I didn't trigger anything." His heart hammered in her chest. Sung looked at something on his wrist device. Patrol drone must have spotted the bodies upstairs. He checked his weapon. How much longer? 2 minutes, maybe 3. "Work faster." Heavy footsteps echoed. Many of them, heard shouting in the language, orders being barked, weapons being charged. Sung moved to the corner where the corridor turned. He pulled a grenade from his belt, waited, then threw it blind around the corner. The explosion shook the walls. Screams followed. But more came, heard them. Dozens of footsteps. The entire compound was responding. "Done," shouted. The vault door hissed open. She ran inside, searching for the codes. The room was full of data storage units. She pulled out her scanner, searching. "I need 30 seconds." "You don't have 30 seconds." Sung fired down the corridor. The weapons report was deafening in the enclosed space. Found the right storage unit. She connected her extraction device. The download started, 20%, 30%. Energy bolts filled the corridor. Sung ducked back, pressed against the wall. He changed magazines, threw another grenade. The explosion bought seconds. 50%, 60%. "They're bringing heavy weapons," Sung shouted. Heard a new sound. Something big, something powerful. She glanced toward the corridor and saw an armored carrying a plasma cannon, the kind used to destroy vehicles. Sung saw it too. For the first time, heard emotion in his voice. Not fear, but calculation. "When I move, you run for the emergency stairs. East corridor, don't stop." "What are you?" "Don't argue." He looked at her, and his eyes weren't empty anymore. They burned with something fierce and desperate. "Run." 80%, 90%. The plasma cannon charged. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the energy building. 100%, got it. Sung moved. He didn't retreat, he charged, directly at the heavy weapons team. Saw him disappear around the corner. Heard weapons fire, heard an explosion, then screaming, so much screaming. She ran, her legs carried her toward the east corridor like he'd said. Behind her the battle continued. More explosions, the building shook. She reached the emergency stairs and started climbing. Up toward ground level, toward escape. Something grabbed her from behind. A guard, bleeding from a head wound but still alive. His massive hand wrapped around her throat. Straining took over. She drove her knee into his midsection. No effect. She drew her knife and stabbed at his arm. The blade bounced off his armor. Her vision started to darken. She couldn't breathe. A gunshot, the guard's head exploded. He dropped her. Sung stood there. He was covered in blood. His left arm hung limp, clearly broken. His face was a mask of pain and fury, but he was still standing, still moving. "I said run," he growled. Then he moved past her, continuing up the stairs. Followed, they climbed. Behind them, more guards pursued. Sung turned and fired with his good arm. The guards fell back. They reached ground level. The night air tasted sweet after the enclosed corridors, but they weren't safe yet. The compound was fully alert now, lights everywhere, sirens wailing. They ran for the perimeter. Guards fired at them. Energy bolts sizzled past's head. Sung pulled her behind cover, then returned fire. Each shot he took seemed to find a target. But he was slowing down. The broken arm, the blood loss. Even humans had limits. Or did they? Sung stood from cover, exposing himself. He fired methodically, covering advance. He took a hit to the shoulder, kept firing. Another hit to his leg, kept moving. They reached the perimeter wall. Sung threw charges at its base. "Back!" he shouted. The explosion tore through the wall. They ran through the gap into the darkness beyond. Guards pursued, but Sung had prepared for this. Small explosive devices along their retreat path. He triggered them remotely, creating chaos behind them. They reached his ship, climbed aboard. The engines roared to life. As they lifted off, looked at Sung. He sat in the pilot's seat, flying one-handed. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. His broken arm hung useless, but his eyes were focused, alert. "You're dying," she said. "Not yet," he replied. The ship broke atmosphere and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Only then did Sung collapse. Sung hit the floor hard, barely caught him before his head struck the metal decking. For a moment, she thought he was dead. Then she felt his chest rise with a shallow breath. "Medical supplies," she said aloud, talking to herself to stay calm. "Where are medical supplies?" She found them in a locker near the back of the ship. The kit was extensive, military grade. Bandages, surgical tools, medications. Everything needed to treat serious trauma. She dragged the kit to where Sung lay and opened it with shaking hands. His coat was soaked with blood. She cut it away with trauma shears, then his shirt. What she saw made her gasp. His body was a map of violence. Old scars covered every inch of skin. Burns, knife wounds, bullet holes. Some were surgical, neat lines where doctors had repaired damage. Most were rough, jagged marks where he'd treated himself or simply survived without proper care. But the new wounds were worse. A deep gash across his shoulder where an energy bolt had grazed him. Another wound in his thigh, bleeding heavily. His left arm was definitely broken, bent at an unnatural angle. Had field medical training. All officers did. But this was beyond anything she'd practiced. She took a breath and started working. First, stop the bleeding. She packed the thigh wound with clotting foam and wrapped it tight. The shoulder wound needed stitches. Her hands shook as she threaded the needle, but she managed it. 12 stitches. Her instructor would have been ashamed of the messy work, but it held. The broken arm was the hardest. She had to straighten it before splinting. Sung woke up when she did it, his scream filling the small ship. Then he passed out again. 2 hours later, she had done everything she could. Wounds cleaned and bandaged. Arm splinted. Pain medication injected. His vital signs were stable but weak. Sat against the wall, exhausted. Blood covered her hands and uniform. Her entire body shook with adrenaline crash. She must have dozed off because when she opened her eyes, Sung was awake. He lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling. His eyes were distant, seeing something far away. "You should be unconscious for at least 6 more hours," said. "The pain medication alone should have knocked you out." "Human metabolism," Sung replied. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "Burns through drugs faster than most species." He tried to sit up and failed, falling back with a grunt of pain. "How long until we reach 7? 4 more hours, don't move. You'll tear your stitches." Sung laughed. It was a bitter sound, empty of humor. "I've torn worse." Moved closer to him. Now that the immediate crisis was over, curiosity overwhelmed her fear. "Why do you do this? Risk your life for money." "It's not about money." "Then what?" Sung was quiet for a long time, thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice soft and distant. I had a different life once, on a colony called New Haven, beautiful place, green valleys, clean air, peaceful people. His eyes closed. I was head of security, not much to do really. Break up the occasional bar fight, help find lost kids, boring work, safe work. He paused, stayed silent, sensing there was more. I met someone there, her name was Sara. She worked as a teacher, taught the colony children. A ghost of a smile touched his face. She was small, always laughing. She could find joy in anything, even someone like me. What happened? Asked gently. The smile died. Pirates. They came during harvest season. We were a farming colony, wealthy but not well defended. I fought them. Killed 3 before they stunned me. When I woke up, half the colonists were gone, taken for the slave markets. Felt ice in her stomach. She knew about the pirate-slave trade. It was one of the galaxy's darkest evils. Sara was among the taken, Sung continued. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. I spent 2 years tracking them, system to system, station to station, following rumors and whispers. I learned things, dark things, how the slave trade worked, who bought, who sold, where they hid. 2 years, whispered. I found them on a moon called 3, big operation, hundreds of slaves. I went in alone, killed my way through, found the holding cells. He stopped, his jaw clenched. I was too late. Silence filled the ship, only the hum of engines and the beep of monitors. She was already dead, asked softly. Sung nodded slowly. Fever, some disease spreading through the cells, no medical care. They let them die rather than waste money on medicine. His hands curled into fists despite his injuries. She'd been dead for 3 days when I found her. Felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away. I killed everyone in that facility, Sung said. His voice was cold now, empty. Every pirate, every guard, every slaver, 247 people. It took me 3 days. Some I made last longer than others. And after, asked. After I couldn't go back, couldn't return to New Haven and pretend to be normal. I'd become something else. Something that only knew how to hurt and kill. He looked at her directly. So I kept going. Hired myself out to anyone fighting slavers, pirates, criminals. Became the thing they feared. Better me than another good person. Understood now. The emptiness in his eyes. The brutal efficiency. Sung had died on 3 along with Sara. What walked and fought and killed in his place was just a weapon pointed at evil. Do you regret it? She asked. Every day, he said quietly. But regret changes nothing. Sara is still dead. The galaxy is still full of people like those pirates, so I keep fighting. It's all I have left. Is that why you took this job? The syndicate deals in slaves. Sung's eyes met hers. For a moment she saw past the emptiness to the pain underneath. I take any job that hurts people who deserve it. Your codes were important, yes, but they also traffic in living beings. Destroying their operation saves lives. That's worth dying for. You almost did die, pointed out. Almost only counts in mathematics. He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. I've been almost dead before. It never sticks. Because you won't let it, said, understanding flooding through her. You survive because you refuse to quit, not for yourself, for Sara. Sung looked away. Dying would mean they won, would mean she died for nothing, so I keep living, keep fighting. Every slaver I kill, every operation I destroy is one less Sara in the galaxy. Sat back, processing everything. The legends made sense now. The impossible survival, the relentless violence. Sung wasn't unstoppable because he was superhuman. He was unstoppable because he had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Get some rest, she said. I'll watch the controls. Sung said as she started to stand. She looked back at him. You did well today. You kept your head, followed orders, completed the mission. Sara would have liked you. It was perhaps the kindest thing he'd said to her. Nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She moved to the pilot's seat and watched the stars streak past. Behind her, Sung's breathing evened out as the medication finally pulled him under. The ghost, the demon, the hunter, all just names for a broken man who refused to stop fighting. And somehow, that made him more terrifying than any legend. Because legends could die, but Sung refused to. Outpost 7 appeared on the like a metal flower against the black of space, felt relief wash over her. They'd made it. Against all odds, they'd survived. Sung sat in the pilot's seat, his broken arm still splinted, his face pale from blood loss. But he guided the ship in with steady hands. Even injured, he was precise, professional. The docking bay doors opened and they slid inside. The moment the ship touched down, medical teams rushed forward, had sent ahead notification of injuries. They brought a stretcher. Sung waved them off. "I can walk." "You absolutely cannot walk," the lead medic said. She was older, with the confidence of someone who'd seen everything. "You've lost significant blood and have multiple serious injuries." "I've had worse," Sung said. He stood from the pilot's seat, swayed, then steadied himself against the console. The medic looked at who shrugged helplessly. "He's stubborn." "Human," the medic muttered, as if that explained everything. Perhaps it did. They compromised. Sung walked down the ramp himself, but 2 medics supported him on either side. His pride satisfied, he allowed them to guide him to the medical bay. Commander met them in the corridor. His 4 eyes widened when he saw Sung's condition. "You look terrible." "Mission accomplished," Sung replied. "Officer has the codes." Pulled the data device from her pocket and handed it to. "Confirmed. Full extraction. All codes intact." Held the device like it was made of precious metal. In a way, it was. These codes represented the security of the entire defense network. "Outstanding work, both of you," he looked at Sung. "I'll have your payment transferred immediately." "Half now, half when I leave," Sung said. "Standard contract terms." "Of course," gestured to the medics. "Get him treated, whatever he needs." They took Sung to the medical bay. Followed, though she wasn't sure why. Curiosity, perhaps, or concern. She'd spent hours keeping him alive. Some connection had formed during that time. The doctors worked efficiently. They gave Sung something stronger for the pain, though noticed they had to use triple the normal dosage. They reset his arm properly, put it in a regeneration sleeve. Treated his wounds with advanced medicine that would speed healing. Through it all, Sung remained quiet. His eyes were distant again, back to that empty place where he lived. Left when they started more intensive treatment. She returned to her quarters, showered, changed into a clean uniform. The blood under her fingernails took scrubbing to remove. She kept seeing it, kept feeling Sung's blood on her hands, warm and sticky. She tried to sleep but couldn't. After an hour of staring at the ceiling, she gave up and went to the observation deck. The galaxy spread out before her through the viewport. Billions of stars, trillions of beings, and somewhere among them, people like Sung fought invisible wars against darkness. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Turned, Sung stood in the doorway. He wore clean clothes now, his arm in a proper cast. He looked better, though still injured, still tired. "You should be resting," said. "Can't sleep. Too much medication makes my head fuzzy." He walked to the viewport and stood beside her. "I never get tired of this view, no matter how many stations I visit." They stood in silence for a while, then spoke. "Thank you for saving my life. When that guard grabbed me, I thought I was dead." "You saved mine first," Sung replied. "Fair trade." "I just patched wounds. You actually fought." "Fighting is easy. I've done it my whole life. Keeping someone alive when they're dying, that takes real skill." He glanced at her. "You did good work, officer. Better than some trained combat medics I've known." The compliment warmed her more than it should have. "What will you do now, after you leave?" "Same thing I always do. Find the next job, the next fight." His voice was flat, resigned. It doesn't have to be that way, said carefully. You could work for us, officially. The military could use someone with your skills, regular pay, medical benefits, a purpose beyond just survival. Sung smiled. It was sad, full of old pain. I appreciate the offer, but I can't. Why not? Because I'm not a soldier, I'm not a protector, I'm a weapon. He looked at his hands. I'm good at one thing, destroying what needs to be destroyed. Your military has rules, laws, things I can't follow. I do what needs doing, regardless of cost. That doesn't fit in neat organizational boxes. You're more than just a weapon, insisted. I saw it, the way you covered my escape, the way you fought to protect someone you barely knew. That's not a weapon, that's a warrior. Warriors fight for causes they believe in, Sung said quietly. I fight because I don't know how to do anything else. I think you're lying to yourself, said. She surprised herself with her boldness. I think you fight because you still care, because somewhere inside all that emptiness, you remember what Sara believed in, and you honor her memory by protecting others the way you couldn't protect her. Sung stared at her. For a long moment neither spoke. Then something shifted in his expression. Not much, just a crack in the armor. Maybe, he said finally, maybe you're right. Stay, said. Not forever, just for a while. Work with us on other missions. You don't have to be alone in this fight. Sung shook his head slowly. I work alone, it's safer that way. Safer for who? For people around me. Everyone who gets close to me ends up hurt or dead. It's better if I stay away. That's fear talking, said, and you're not afraid of anything. I'm afraid of caring again, Sung admitted. His voice was barely a whisper. Afraid of having something to lose, because when I lose it I become something terrible, something that scares even me. Understood, she placed her hand on his arm gently. Then don't lose it, stay here, let us be your crew, your team, share the burden. Sung looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. His empty eyes showed something new, not warmth but perhaps the possibility of warmth someday. I'll think about it, he said. It was more than she expected. She smiled. That's all I ask. 2 days later, Sung's ship prepared to leave. Went to the docking bay to see him off. His arm was healing fast, already showing the benefits of medical technology. Payments confirmed, he said, checking his. And the operation is in chaos. You crippled them badly. We crippled them, corrected. Sung nodded. Fair point. He paused at the bottom of his ship's ramp. You asked me what humans are, why we're so different. Yes. We're survivors, we're stubborn, we don't know when to quit. He looked at her directly. But more than that, we remember. We carry our dead with us, every loss, every failure. It drives us, makes us relentless. The galaxy whispers my name in fear because I represent what humans become when we lose everything. And what's that? Asked. Unstoppable. He started up the ramp, then paused. But Sara used to whisper my name differently, with love, with hope. Don't let the violence define you, officer. Stay who you are. The galaxy needs more people like you. He disappeared into his ship. The ramp closed. The engines fired up. Watched the ship lift off and disappear into space. She thought that was the end, that she'd never see Sung again. She was wrong. 3 weeks later, her console beeped with an incoming encrypted message. No sender information. But when she opened it, she knew who it was from. The message contained detailed intelligence on a major slave trafficking operation. Routes, names, locations, everything needed to shut it down completely. At the bottom was a single line. Thought you could use this. Stay safe. Smiled. She forwarded the intelligence to Commander and began planning the operation. That night, in a cantina on the far side of the sector, spacers whispered about the ghost. New stories added to old legends. Tales of impossible survival and unstoppable fury. But knew the truth now. Behind the legend was a man who refused to quit, who carried his pain and turned it into purpose, who protected others in the only way he knew how. The galaxy called humans dangerous, unpredictable, terrifying. They were right, but not for the reasons they thought. Humans were terrifying because they never gave up. They carried their dead. They remembered their pain, and they would burn themselves to ashes if it meant lighting the way for others. Sung was proof of that, a broken man who became a legend, a weapon who chose to protect, a ghost who haunted the guilty. And now, in her own small way, would honor what he'd taught her. She would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. She would build bridges between her people and humans, one mission at a time, one life saved at a time. Because that's what Sora would have wanted. And that's what Sung deserved. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, his ship moved on to the next fight, the next impossible mission. And the galaxy continued to whisper his name in fear.